So today I wanted to record a little video while my cat here was just chilling on my lap. Let's see what she wanna do. Mimi, 你说你好。Today we're gonna talk about LLMs and AI and a little bit about my feeling about the future of it. Don't press the keyboard. Don't press the keyboard. Let's try this way. As I was saying, so I think we need a little bit of premises. We've seen this LLM craziness, this LLM mania, these AI chatbots really becoming parts of our daily life in the recent years. And I'm a very big fan of it. Because this is an unprecedented moment in history, in my opinion. Our parents' generation, they saw so much. They saw so many changes. They saw internet and they saw smartphones coming in their lives. But all of these changes in the technological field, they were pretty slow. Internet was first released in the 90s for the normal people to have a connection in their house, in the late 90s, in the beginning of the 2000s. But if I think about my parents, before having a stable connection in our house, we had to wait until 2010, probably. Same with smartphones. It took maybe 5 years, 7 years before becoming really that common of a thing. The first iPhone, when was it released? In 2009, 10? But my parents were still using Nokia phones. And then we had the first iPhone with an app store, the iPhone 2 or 3. But my parents were still using a BlackBerry with no internet connection, with no Wi-Fi. And that was interesting because the world was moving fast. But this wasn't happening for everyone at the same time. Not everyone had access to these new technologies. Because usually these kind of big things, they take time. Even if you go even more back to the Industrial Revolution. How much did it take for every person's life to be affected by it? It took tens, if not 100 years. And with the recent technology, same thing. But with AI, it didn't. It took less than 1 year. In 2023, OpenAI released ChatGPT, the first public model for everyone to use. But it was still ChatGPT 3 or 3.5, which was pretty bad, which is undeniably pretty bad. Maybe you could have wrote a couple of emails with it, but that's it. So there was no coding, there was no real text editing, and no real capability of doing something in our place, working instead of us. But then 2024 came around, and in 1 year we went from ChatGPT 4, which was pretty interesting to write emails, to O1, to the model O1, the first thinking model. And that's something extremely interesting. Again, in that 1 year, in 2024, the majority of the people we all know started using AI. Every person you know has used AI at least once in the developed country. And if you're not 70 years old, probably you have used AI more than once. In just 1 year, that thing happened. And how much this thing evolved. For smartphones to become pretty interesting and usable, we had to wait at least 5 years. If you think about the first smartphones, and then, so I think about the first Samsung Galaxy models, and then to have something really nice and usable, we had to wait 3-4 years for it to happen. The first iteration were pretty slow, they're not that nice. Maybe at that time they were, but they did get old pretty bad, they aged pretty bad in my opinion. For AI, this is not happening. If we think about the first real model, I would define it this way, which was ChatGPT 4, it didn't age bad at all. It's still perfectly usable today. And if we think about the first reasoning model, O1, which was released 1 year ago, that's still pretty good. That's not SOTA level, definitely, but they're still very, very good and usable. Not that different from what we have today. Yeah, today they're fine-tuned better, and we have some better post-training, and even more pre-training probably, even if I was actually reading about the fact that the new models, O3, ChatGPT 5, they're still based on the 4 and 4.0 architecture. This to try to understand how fast this thing goes and how many things for the moment were promised to change. Our life didn't change that much, but every big company is promising so many new things for the future in the hope to get more funds from all the big American banks and hoping the American government will print more good dollars to build these new data centers. And so let's talk about the possible future. We didn't reach the wall. We didn't reach the plateau. There was a lot of talking before the last 2 weeks that yes, we reached a plateau. ChatGPT 5.1 is not that good compared to 5, which is not that good compared to 4.5, which is not that good compared to 4. But that's actually not true. With the release of Gemini 3 and Claude 4.5 Opus, that's definitely not true. 4.5 Opus delivers the same performances of all the rest of the models while using much less tokens. That's something absolutely, and that's something that we shouldn't underestimate. It's a very big thing because yes, we should try to make things better, but we also fundamentally need to make things more efficient. Not because we want to save the environment, we don't care. We can use water, we can burn a couple more forests. But if we really want it to do some concrete things, they have to become more efficient. In my opinion, these new models are already too smart. There's a lot of debate about AGI. What's AGI? When we're gonna have AGI? AGI, which stands for Artificial General Intelligence. This is gonna be a hot take, but in my opinion, we already reached AGI. We already have Artificial General Intelligence. Every big chatbot we have access today, they are smarter than me. They are better at writing and at doing math and creating music and reading and comprehending text and communicating and even at writing code, probably, even if that's my job. And I do use it when working, so I'm just helping it get better while I'm getting slowly worse, probably. But the big step, which I hope is going to happen next year, is a transition from this craziness and this constant trying and retrying of making these models even more smarter with better pre-training, and try to focus all of the effort onto making these things more able to interact with the softwares we actually need to work and get work done. So these bots are so good at writing, and that's why they're so good at coding. Coding is just reading and writing. Is not that different from a librarian. That's not true. However, these new models are so good at coding, and all the software developers have been really pushing and using them because they just have to read and write, and LLMs are so good at it. But what about engineers who have to use AutoCAD on other programs, softwares to design a bridge? AI cannot do that. You can prompt it to create a bridge, but his answer is going to be text. And with text, we cannot just create. We need a model. And how do we do that? How do we make these new models, which are already smart enough, probably smart enough to do it, interact with these softwares? Because otherwise they're gonna just become our new boss. The AI is gonna tell you what to do, and you're like a little good slave. You're gonna have to press the buttons on the 3D modeling software. That's not how it should work. It should be actually the opposite. I should tell him what to do, and it automatically should try to create this 3D model. How this gonna happen? This is a pretty big question. This is pretty interesting. So we have these MCP servers, which in my opinion are just glorified APIs. I don't really see it as an interesting thing because these new models keep iterating so fast and they start and keep changing even faster. So I don't see in MCPs a real future and something really truly groundbreaking and life-changing. What I'm hoping more is about a computer having full control, an LLM having full control of a machine. And it's not efficient. It's not efficient at all. We already had a couple of tests. We already have Claude releasing something like that. We have a couple of others. Projects on open source, even on GitHub. One is called Skyward. Nah, probably it's wrong. However, where we take a series of screenshots of our computers and we send it to LLMs, and it's gonna spit an answer which is press in that particular position of the screen, and from that an action is gonna happen, and then this have to keep going. But this is extremely resource intensive, because this model have to keep reading images and spitting an answer, an image, an answer, an image, an answer, and every round is a new inference round. So that's extremely not efficient, but that's the best way. That's the way that I personally can see about now making a real difference, a real working difference. I don't want to see Excel having a little AI implementation in it where he can maybe write a formula instead of you. I can just do it. Or maybe the people who work in corporate can do it. He has to do it by himself. I have to prompt it to do it, and then automatically happen. Then we can start to talk about the possible future of work, about things actually being different, us becoming useless, which is something I hope for. Actually, is something, yeah, that's not very nice if you think about it, and if more than myself and some bots on YouTube watch my videos, they probably say I would be crazy. But I would like to be useless. I would like to not have to work, and as no one else, because as a human species we've evolved so much, and our objective was always trying to make the next generation live better. All of our ancestors sacrificed a little bit themselves to let their children be able to live even better. And this could be the next step. A couple of scientists in America and in China also, because we always talk about OpenAI and Claude and Anthropic and Google DeepMind and these American laboratories, but China is also pushing, is also doing things. And that's another thing I don't really like, saying China. It's not the president of China doing these things. They are private labs, private industries that do this, and they invest their own money. So that's not China. There's Baidu, and there's Tencent, and there's Alibaba, and there's a whole lot of other companies who work into this. And these Chinese models, they're also very good, and they're open source, and they're open weight, and they are probably making the research in this field go even faster, because they release all of the research they do, and they can work on it to get even better and faster, instead of the Americans company, where for the moment we already know they have internal models not released, and we know they have internal research not released. And this is totally not efficient, because all of these companies have to keep doing the same research instead of taking advantage of whatever other people did. Google is pretty good laboratory. They tend to release a lot. But are they releasing everything? And OpenAI and XAI? So there's something it must be keeping in mind, because if in the future this gonna happen, I would feel like probably the Chinese labs probably would have done more to get into it, to get to it actually. Again, for next year, my new hope is that this idea of pre-training these models even more will stop partially, because this new model are already smart enough, again in my opinion, I think this is where this distinction goes. When I say these models are smart enough, they are smart enough to do the job of basically half, I don't know, these are just random numbers, half of the normal corporate jobs in America. I'm not American, but it sounds cool to say in America. And for me, this is already enough. Personally, I think to substitute their jobs would be already enough. But for the big American laboratories, that's not enough. They're not gonna stop there. They want even more. They wanna get to these self-improving models where they can go higher and higher and then go to space and then conquer the universe and then use antimatter to do things. And that's something that has pros and cons. Because on one side we could make life easier. I think I should make in the future another video where I talk about this idea of AI working in our place and its possible effects and solutions. And I should stick more on the topic of, in next year, I hope all of this pre-training mania, when all of the new data centers that are being built right now are going to be built finally, and they're going to have scraped all of the internet 10 times, and they're going to have scanned all of the books that are in the libraries in the world that still haven't been scanned, the pre-training will stop. And we'll have more focus on the post-training, I don't know if it's the right definition, however, on how we interact with it and what these models can actually, physically do for us. Another thing interesting is robotics. I'm no expert, but I would also like to inform myself and try to talk a little bit about it, because robotics also is one of those fields that really can have a huge impact on our lives. I don't care about a model that will change the world, that will let us conquer the universe. I just want to live better. I want to see these models used to make us work less and less and let us do what we actually want to do. That's it. That was pretty confused, but that's it for today.